Hello ladies and gentlemen and welcome to the Film Brits podcast. I'm your host Trilbee, the Harry Osborn of film criticism, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different if I'm able to properly say or enunciate my words, as I think I went a little bit lopsided there. No podcast last week because I was busy working. I was in Birmingham doing a car show for the weekend. That was actually an awful lot of fun, and hopefully something really fun comes out of that. And just this past week I've just not had the time to be able to catch up, so I took a weekend off. But basically why you didn't get this podcast a couple of days earlier, maybe the Friday or the Saturday, is because I've been feeling quite under the weather. I've not been able to string together sentences very much. I probably still can't, or you can argue that I've never actually been able to do so. But that's the reason why I'm recording this podcast on a Sunday afternoon, as opposed to going for the Saturday, which I would much prefer to do. But it also means that I've been able to go to the cinema quite a lot this week. I've seen Okja, which was, holy god, that escalated quickly. Seen Despicable Me 3, which is basically a bit like Candy Floss in that it's sweet and sugary and all that stuff, but there's practically nothing to it, and the moment you finished eating it, you're just going to be hungry for something a lot more substantial, and it's just got no nutritional value whatsoever. There's really nothing to it. Spider-Man Homecoming, which is pretty good. I'm going to be going much more in depth with that on the Movie Mania podcast, which I'm recording tonight with Trey and hopefully Bandit. And also, what else did I see? I also went to a Q&A screening in my local city for The Big Sick, which is a really, really good romantic comedy. Really enjoyed it. There was a really interesting Q&A afterwards, which was unfortunately quite short, but still very eye-opening nonetheless. You can see The Big Sick when it comes out on... is it July 27th or July 28th? Basically, just towards the end of July, you'll be able to catch it in UK cinemas. It's a really, really good romantic comedy, one of the best ones in years, in my humble opinion. So let's just open this podcast before we get to the main subject. Let's talk about Share the Love, which is a segment I like to try and do as regularly as possible, because the internet and the world in general is just a really horrible, negative place at the moment. So let's just give some publicity in a way, or let's just share some love and affection to a particular individual online, or should I say individuals here, because I'm going to be talking about Hank and Jed movie pictures, specifically the Duralius and Associates series. Now, it was amazing to wake up this morning, drop my fiance off at work, come back home, put YouTube on, and see a Duralius and Associates episode in my subscription feed for the first time in over 3 years. Basically, Hank and Jed are they're a small group of animators and voice actors who do animated shorts on YouTube or online. They used to be with The Escapist, and then they left, and then they started doing their own thing. They did an Indiegogo, or was it a Kickstarter campaign for one of their series, which I backed, full disclosure. And they've done they've done their own feature film called Tombstone, which I've yet to watch, but I will be checking it out as soon as I can. And they're mainly well known for doing the Battlefield Friends series, which is basically a Call of Duty Battlefield video game cartoon parody series where they poke fun at the modern military shooter online game behavior. But the series that I really know them for, which is probably one of their least popular series, is Duralius and Associates, which is a comedy series set in an old fictional sort of sword and sandals mystical Lord of the Rings style place called Newdonia, and it's follows this group called Duralius and Associates, where they're essentially mercenaries or odd job men for hire. They are you've got Duralius, who is a swordsman. You've got Drac, who is a dwarf. You've got Murdon, who's a wizard. You've got Neebs, the elf. You've got Bruce, the barbarian, and Sir Walken, who is another swordsman, but he is basically Christopher Walken. It's a really, really funny series. It's one of those ones where it may be set in this swords and sandals magical mystical realm, but there's very little action or combat in it. It is very character driven. It is very joke driven. Some really great voice acting, some incredible jokes and running gags. They're 50 episodes in. The 50th episode, like I said, dropped to my subscription feed this morning. But I will put the Hank and Jed YouTube channel in the description of this podcast, whether it's on YouTube or iTunes or SoundCloud, whatever. It'll be in the description below, and I'll also put a direct link to their Duralius and Associates playlist, so you can just marathon all of the episodes. That's a few hours of incredibly fun content. I really enjoy and love that series, and I think you should check it out. So let's get to the main meat of the podcast. Normally I talk about a subject or a topic or something newsworthy or review a film, followed by taking Patreon questions, but instead I'm going to do something a little bit different because I just thought this would be a nice change of pace. Now, I get a lot of questions for the lightning round portion of the podcast, where basically I go on Twitter and say, hey, give me a question in 140 characters, and I'll essentially answer it in a minute or less. But I decided to just go on Facebook and say, hey, let's make an entire episode of the Film Brits podcast, the lightning round. This is the lightning episode, more or less. So I've not seen any of these questions. I have no idea how many there are. There's quite a lot of them. I got quite a few notifications. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a quick swig of my tea, because this is just going to hurt my voice. Okay, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to press go on the timer for a minute, and I'm going to answer every single one of these questions. God, I keep scrolling, and there's just more of them. So for some reason Facebook just decided to refresh. Okay, I've got over 40 comments, I think, maybe 50. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Finley Rude asks, thoughts on Doctor Who Series 10 and what you want in the Christmas special. Series 10, I think, had quite a lull in the middle with the Monk 3-parter. Extremis is easily the weakest episode, and it's probably the first series since Series 3 where there has not been an outright bad episode. I mean, Series 3... did have a few lulls, and I'm talking to you, the Daleks 2-parter, but that isn't a terrible bad story. I don't classify it as bad, but Series 10 was actually a really good return to form. Some really solid stories. I really liked Thin Ice. I liked Oxygen. I actually really liked The Doctor Falls. I need to give it a couple more repeat viewings just to see if the logic holds up, but there's nothing there that I absolutely seem to hate like I did for Hellbent or Dark Water, Death in Heaven, things like that. Series 10, it might not have been able to reach the peak of Capaldi's performance, but it was still a very solid bit of television, and hopefully Chris Chibnall is able to just take this baton. And as for the Christmas special, I've already got the first Doctor, that's all I need. That was a minute there, more or less. I actually forgot to mention the Christmas special until the last 5 seconds, but okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Luke Jenkins asks, always wondered, do you support a football team, and if not, who is your local football team? My local football team is divided. It is either Manchester United or Manchester City, and I don't really support a football team or any sort of sports team. I don't follow sports. It's just something that I just don't follow or watch. Or I'll watch the Euros or the World Cup or the Olympics and things like that, but in terms of actually supporting a football team week in, week out through the different leagues and that, it's just not something I follow or enjoy. That was always my brother and my dad, who were into their football, into their golf, into their darts, following sports teams, stuff like that. So, I'm sorry to disappoint. I like some football movies. Shaolin Soccer is amazing. Really enjoy Bend It Like Beckham. I enjoy football and sports narratives in films. It's just I don't really seem to follow sports normally. I'm really good at badminton, though. That surprises a lot of people. I'm actually secretly, awesomely very good at badminton. Okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Nathan Snyder asks, have you listened to Spare Parts and what are your thoughts on it? For those of you who don't know, the Big Finish Doctor Who episode Spare Parts was on sale a couple of weekends ago for 99p. I was a day late for the sale, so I saw that it was on sale for £2.99 or like £3, something like that. And I thought, you know what, I came here for a 99p sale, but £3 is still really good for... Because when watching the last episode of Doctor Who, The World... No, I forgot what the title is, but it's with the old Cybermen and Bill gets converted, spoiler warning. It was an incredible, haunting piece of television, and I just thought, okay, after that I just really want to listen to some Spare Parts. I have yet to listen to it. It is downloaded, it is on my laptop, and it's ready to listen to. I just have not found the time to listen to it yet. As soon as I do, I may do a video, I may do even if it's just a Facebook post, I will let you guys know what I thought of it once I've watched it. Okay, start again. 3, 2, 1, go. Joseph Hudson asks, have you ever walked out of a film because you thought it was bad? I have never walked out of a movie theatre for any reason. I don't even go to the toilet. I have mastered bladder control. I've never walked out of a film to go to the toilet, or at least like not in the past 10, 15 years. I've not walked out on a film because I thought it was bad, because I've paid money for this thing, I'm going to see it through to the end. And even a bad film can be worthwhile in terms of teaching you how not to do stuff, in order to teach you how not to make a movie, how not to structure characters, how not to do a plot, so things like that. I think that even when you have a really bad film, there is merit to be had from either the discussion or the film itself. I've watched 50 Shades of Grey, I've watched Amazing Spider-Man 2, I've watched all of the Transformers films, I have not walked out of them. I have turned films off halfway through when I've watched them on the TV, but that's unless like I was planning to review them or something. But in terms of walking out of a movie theatre, I've never done it. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Dom Taylor asks, which is your favourite Dragon Ball movie? Oh god, there's like 15 of them. Off the top of my head, Battle of Gods is really good. I think that's probably the most, like, that in terms of objective quality and not just looking at it through a fan Dragon Ball lens. Battle of Gods is probably one of the better films. Resurrection F is a great spectacle film. I have a soft spot for the Cooler films, but I know that they're not good, especially Revenge, the Metal Cooler, because the animation is just really, really terrible on it. The Wrath of the Dragon has some really great visual elements to it. I like what's his name? The guy with the sword, forget his name off the top of my head. This is the lightning round. And the Broly films are just, again, great action spectacles. Bio Broly is just the worst. Just really boring and pants and terrible. But yeah, I'd say those ones. I think World's Strongest is really solid as well. But I think off the top of my head, in this rambling one, it's got to be Battle of Gods. I went just over a minute there. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Matthew Quilliam asks, best and worst moments or episodes of Doctor Who Series 10. Worst episode is easily Extremis. It just feels like it's more Stephen Moffat pontificating, and it feels like a lot of substance to explain. Not substance, the lack thereof. It just feels like it's talking so much and not saying very much. The end point of the episode is interesting, but it takes so long to get there, and I feel like that could have just been maybe a prologue or something. You don't need to explain it that thoroughly. It just feels like you're being clever for the sake of it. Best episode, probably the series finale, the two-parter. I judge standalone stories and two-parters on in the same way, a complete story, and I think that series finale is probably the best episode. The best moments, I loved I actually liked a lot of Oxygen. Thin Ice when the Doctor punches a racist because he's racist, that was amazing. Worst moment, give me time to think on that one. The negative is not sticking out so much in Series 10, which is a good thing. Next question, this is going to be short. 3, 2, 1, go. Benji Cullinan asks, thoughts on the movie Arrival? Not seen it yet. Sorry to disappoint. I really want to see it, especially before Blade Runner 2049. I love Denis Villeneuve's films. I love Prisoners. I like Sicario. Not as much as everyone else does, but I really do like it. So I've been really wanting to watch Arrival, just have not found the time. 3, 2, 1, go. Luke Plimmer asks, you previously did an editorial explaining how you thought DreamWorks was gradually failing as a studio. Out of interest, what do you think is their weakest film? Yeah, I did an editorial for GeekFeed.com on when the Boss Baby was about to be released, about how DreamWorks just is not the company that they used to be, at least their animation department. The editorial was written when the Boss Baby was going to severely underperform at the box office, but then the Boss Baby actually wound up being a pretty sizable hit for DreamWorks and did very well financially, and it was 50-50 across the board for critics. But in terms of their best film or the weakest film, just going off the top of my head, I think the Madagascar films aren't that great. Over the Hedge is pretty pants. Shrek the Third is just genuinely painful and awkward to watch. Shark Tale I enjoyed as a kid, doesn't hold up, but I didn't even enjoy Shrek the Third as a kid, so off the top of my head, it's got to be Shrek the Third. But in terms of, I know I'm going over the minute, I've stopped the timer. In terms of getting some positivity in here, please watch Rise of the Guardians. That is one of their most underrated films. It did not do well at the box office, but it is an outstanding animated film. Really great, really inventive. Please watch it. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Omar Tovey asks, the oldest movie you have ever watched, and of course your opinion about that movie. Okay, in terms of feature-length films, I've watched a lot of the old, very first, like, the Trip to the Moon, the one with the with the train heading towards the station. But in terms of like feature-length, 60+ minute films, I think the oldest one I have watched is Dracula. What year did that come out? The book was 1897. 1931. I may have watched one earlier, but off the top of my head, that's what I'm going for. Dracula, really great atmospheric. Bela Lugosi's performance has become iconic for a reason. Todd Browning's direction is really atmospheric and great. I love the black and white cinematography. These are guys who just reveled in the black and white and just reveled in the macabre, and Dracula is a prime example of that. It is just a great start to the Universal Monsters stuff. Really great stuff. Just off the top, just for my own curiosity, Citizen Kane. Okay, that was 10 years after Dracula, so it's King Kong, 1933. That was 2 years later. Have I watched one earlier than Dracula? Was it Nosferatu? That's not very long, is it? Nosferatu is 1922. Oh, yeah, I've watched Nosferatu. Yeah, that was 10 years earlier. Nosferatu. I've not seen it for a long time though. Of course, there's a lot of images that really strike with you, but in terms of ones that I have seen recently, or at least in the past couple of years, where I really can properly talk about it, it's Dracula off the top of my head. But I have seen Nosferatu, which was 1922. And that's, once again, just another great iconic piece of filmmaking. So 3, 2, 1, go. Joel Newton asks, which classic Doctor Who monster would you like to return to the new series that hasn't already returned already, and which new Who monster would you like to see return? His answers are the Sea Devils and the Vashta Nerada, respectively. I'd like to see the Sea Devils return. I think they are the biggest recurring villains from the classic series, apart from the Rani. That have yet to have a substantial return. For crying out loud, the Macra came back before the Sea Devils did. The friggin' Macra. There's the Rani as well, but since you've done Missy, I think having a female Time Lady, the novelty of having that as a villain, just doesn't quite hold the same level, so I doubt we'll see the Rani come back anytime soon. Sorry to copy your answer, but the Sea Devils is the one. And Vashta Nerada for the new series, that's a good pick, but I wouldn't want to see Stephen Moffat write them, because as we've seen him do with the Weeping Angels, it's just not, it's not a good result. I don't want to see the Midnight Monster return. There's not really anything that sticks out. I've gone over the minute. There's nothing that sticks out for me in terms of the new Who monsters. So I'm just going to have to abstain from that question, I'm afraid. At least the second half of the question. 3, 2, 1, go. Tom Wisniewski, probably butchered the name. If you could protect one movie from ever being remade, what movie would you choose? I'm open to any and all films being remade, as long as they're remade well or have an interesting slant on the material. But if I had some sort of weird magic barrier that could stop that from happening to one particular film, I think I might have to go for Back to the Future. I think that Back to the Future could be remade. I think that you could either bring back Christopher Lloyd or Michael J. Fox or whoever to make it work, in terms of doing a sequel or remaking it or whatever, or doing a Ghostbuster style. Is it maybe not a sequel? Who knows what the hell we're doing? But I think that 80s vibe to it, the DeLorean, I think if you did a 2017-2018 remake and you did it as a DeLorean, it would come across as just a deliberate anachronism, and it would be too knowing and winking to the camera. But I think that it could be done, but if I did have to protect one film, it would be Back to the Future, one of my favourite movies. Okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Liam Stobie asks, what has been your favourite after-credits scene? Like I said, I don't pre-screen these questions. Off the top of my head, that's not really a post-credit one. The end of The Incredible Hulk when Tony Stark shows up, but that is not post-credits, that is before the credits. Nick Fury showing up at the end of Iron Man is just great, but there's also at the end of Captain America the First Avenger, where we see Captain America punching the punching bag, and then there's a mini trailer for the Avengers that's hard to top. What else have we got? There is also was it X-Men? Oh no, X-Men 3. That was pre X-Men 2. Sorry, that was pre-credits as well. X-Men. There's a lot of stuff that is pre-credits that I'm mistaken for post-credits, like Magneto moving the chess piece at the end of X-Men 3, but that is pre-credit. Let's go for the end of Iron Man 2 when Thor's hammer is showing up, because that is the point of no return for them. That is basically, yes, we have a magic hammer, get with it. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Ollie Cowley asks, any great film-related podcasts you listen to? While the timer is still on, let me just go through my phone and just let you know what I'm subscribed to on my podcast feed if it decides to load. the Chipman Brothers Tangent, which is the Movie Bob's podcast, the Easy Allies, that's gaming related, John Campier podcast, the Q&A with Jeff Goldsmith, where Jeff Goldsmith interviews screenwriters, really great stuff if you want to get into movie writing or movie making in general, the Empire Film podcast, the Weekly Planet, Collider, who do Movie Talk and Jedi Council and all these other shows, and Kermode and Mayo's film reviews. Those are the ones who I'm currently subscribed to, those are the ones who I listen to on a very regular basis, and those are the ones I recommend you check out. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. James Picard asks, do you prefer the Cybermen or the Borg? Sorry to disappoint, I have no opinion on the Borg because I have not watched any of the Star Trek original series or any of the Next Generation or anything other than the first 4 movies and the new rebooted trilogy. The only episode of the original series I've watched is when they went to an Alice in Wonderland planet, and that was so trippy and so weird and so strange it kind of put me off watching it for a while, so... Can I take a quick drink? So it's got to be the Cybermen by default, because I just don't know anything about the Borg other than what they look like, and that Patrick Stewart once played one. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Devin Bell asks, have you seen A Clockwork Orange? If so, what do you think of it? That's a loaded question. Yes, I have seen Clockwork Orange, but not for a few years. It's one of those... It's much like Nosferatu. It is a film where it's so full of striking imagery. Like, what's the name of the main guy? Clockwork Orange. The main guy, Malcolm McDowell. How did I forget that? When his eyes are stuck open and when he's singing in the rain while his friends basically sexually assault that woman. It's not even basically. They are sexually assaulting that woman when they're running in slow motion down the streets and they just start attacking each other. The weird, horrific masks they wear. I honestly don't remember much of the plot of Clockwork Orange. It's just these images, these tableaus, these sequences that stick with me. It's something I do need to revisit. It is... yeah, it's a very haunting film. I will not enjoy watching it again, but I will enjoy watching it again, if that makes sense. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. William Jacks asks, the actress to play the 13th Doctor has apparently been leaked. If you're aware of who it is, do you have any thoughts? Yeah, I forget her name, but Newsnight Doctor Who. There was, at the end of a BBC Newsnight story, they dropped a huge hint, supposedly, that Phoebe Waller-Bridge was going to be playing the next Doctor. It was a weird, anticlimactic, possibly half-joking way to announce the next Doctor, but Phoebe Waller-Bridge, she has a very distinctive look, and I think that would give her an interesting screen presence as the Doctor, but I've not really seen any of what she's done. I've not seen it. I've looked through her filmography. There's nothing in there that I've really seen, or at least nothing substantial, so I couldn't really say. But, you know, like, she's in the upcoming Han Solo movie, and she's been in a few films and done quite a lot of TV. She's winning a lot of awards for playing Fleabag in Fleabag, which is a BBC Three and Amazon Studios series. So if it's her, best of luck to her, but let's see what the news brings us. Okay, next question, 3, 2, 1, go. Alex Cepeda asks, what are your thoughts on art house films like 2001 or Mulholland Drive? Are they pretentious or amazing? Art house films... like 2001 is a film that I have a confused Matthew opinion on, where I think it is just it's a great technological achievement, but it is just noise and images and colour, and there's practically no substance to it. I know that there's so much film theory and so much discussion surrounding 2001: A Space Odyssey, but from what I've read or what I've seen, most of it is pretty baseless. And I think that the film just gives you so little information. It is meant to be just a cerebral experience, and for those trying to find something more to it, I admire it. I just don't even begin to see it. I love Hal 9000 though. I think he is that whole segment of the film is amazing. But as for art house films of that type, they've got time and a place, but for the most part it is basically, if we do a Dutch angle, black and white, and film it backwards, people will find meaning where there is absolutely none. Say, for example, Under the Skin. Sorry, that's a loaded topic, and I can only do these in a minute. I want to try and be equal opportunities here. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Dean Jones says, with the release of Spider-Man Homecoming, a favourite Spider-Man movie so far. Also, hashtag Dean Jones for the next Doctor. Dean Jones never stopped not being the next Doctor. It's Spider-Man 2. This is, for me, it's not even close. It's why I can sort of flippantly make a joke about his hashtag and not really give a full minute to the question. Spider-Man 2 is one of the best comic book movies ever made. Sam Raimi is a incredible director, one of the best of the modern era in my opinion, and I think Spider-Man 2. A lot of people like to knock it because it is the hip cool thing to do, because it is earnest. It wears its heart on its sleeve. It is a amalgamation of the Silver Age of comic books. And I think that is exactly what Sam Raimi wanted to do, and that's where his strengths are. The action sequences are superb. Alfred Molina is one of the best comic book villains ever. Tobey Maguire is outstandingly good in that film. It is just a complete package. It is one of my favourite movies ever, and Spider-Man, it is easily the best Spider-Man movie. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Pablo, actually, you know what, I'm going to ask this question first and then put the timer on, because that seems to be not fair. Okay, Pablo Lara asks, we're experiencing an age where most movies are being made based on franchise properties. This isn't new, but what are your thoughts on the fact that we mostly see stuff based on pre-established products compared to original stories? 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, it's clear that more franchise films and sequels and remakes and reboots are being made at any point now than at any point in history for Hollywood, but by the same token, because the sheer amount of movies being made are at the highest they've ever been, there's more original films coming out ever at any point than there were before, and new avenues such as Netflix and Amazon, streaming and YouTube and all these other venues, and being able to self-publish and self-release. There's more original films now than there have ever been, and it just seems like the big budget space is more saturated with franchise stuff than there has been before, but it's proven to financially work. I think that as long as these big blockbusters are doing original things with their budgets and with their mainstream appeal and with all of the eyes on them, I think that's absolutely fine. Do whatever they want as long as they're doing something different. Like, I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing that as well. But I think that as long as film fans are using those franchise properties as a gateway to the original stuff, the industry will be just fine. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Ben Frost says, what are your thoughts on Nardole now in the new series of Doctor Who has concluded? I've grown to love him in the series. I didn't quite buy the Nardole as an absolute badass angle, but I still really liked Nardole. I think Matt Lucas did really well. I was really waiting for like the Nardole-centric episode, like the one where Bill and the Doctor got drifted off somewhere, leaving him alone, and I really was hoping we'd get that story from him, so I feel like he might have been a bit of a third wheel in Series 10 as a whole, but he still had some great moments. Matt Lucas has just got such a unique presence and just unique comic sensibilities that you're never really going to forget Nardole, but I think his questionable, he's a bit like Catherine Tate, but maybe not as popular and not as well executed, where her first appearance was grating and annoying, and then when they're like, oh, they're bringing them back, you think, what, why? But then they really sort of earn their keep and they do a real good job. I think Matt Lucas did really good, and I don't really want Nardole back, but I think he did well for the time he did. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Edward Eggbukton asks, you are asked to create a new Doctor Who spin-off for TV. What is your pitch? Oh god, an elevator pitch for something I've actually never thought of before. Okay, right. Doctor Who TV pitch. I've already used up a quarter of my time. Okay, so it's based on a bounty hunter who has been asked by some unknown, unseen person to kill the Doctor, and basically they are able to use that structure to follow the Doctor around time and space wherever he goes. So you do have basically an anthology series of different stories, different settings, different supporting casts and things like that. But it is this main assassin, this main hitman, who is the lead as you follow them throughout the whole thing, basically in the Doctor's shadow. And yeah, and basically just seeing his legacy as he leaves places behind. Let's see what happens to these worlds once the Doctor is gone, and you can see him through the eyes of this character who's been asked to kill him. There we go, that's my pitch. I probably wasted a lot of time thinking it up, but hopefully that is something you lot in the comment section or on Twitter or on Facebook, whatever, can expand upon. Okay, I need a drink. Right. I have no idea how many we've got left, but we're just going to keep on going. 3, 2, 1, go. Marley Burry asks, which Harry Potter character from the main series could carry their own spin-off movie? Neville Longbottom? It might be interesting to see the story from the Malfoy's perspective, or what happened to them. Did they really get off so easy? Did they really not wind up in Azkaban for basically aiding the Dark Lord? I think a series set in the Ministry would be interesting, or something, or maybe a series set in Azkaban. I don't really know what character it could follow, but I think that setting is ripe for exploration. Like, how did Sirius Black actually escape? Like, I don't actually think they explained it in the films. I'm sure in the book they did, I've probably forgotten, but how did they actually escape? Let's find out the inner workings of Azkaban. That's really all I have to offer for that question, I'm afraid. Okay. As for this question from Edward Sweet asking, are you familiar with the films of Troma Studios? And he talks about Toxic Avenger, Class of Nukem High, and Troma Studios stuff. Apart from the Toxic Avenger, is something I've not seen or watched anything. I know that it basically launched James Gunn's career, but I'm just going to skip over that question, I'm afraid, Edward, because I don't know anything about Troma apart from Lloyd Kaufman's existence and, of course, the Toxic Avenger. Okay, so next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Taylor Zazo Christina says, what is your opinion of Mel Brooks? And if you haven't seen Blazing Saddles, fix that. Of course, I love Mel Brooks' works. The producers, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein. I love Mel Brooks' work, and I think Lindsay Ellis... the nostalgia chick, and her on YouTube. She's done a terrific editorial on Mel Brooks and political correctness and his stance on humor and things. I think it's a terrific video which you need to watch. But yeah, Mel Brooks, 12 Chairs, silent movie. Spaceballs, Robin Hood Men in Tights. The guy's legacy is almost incomparable. The guy is hysterically funny. His sense of humour is completely right up my alley, and Blazing Saddles is one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. I need to get it on Blu-ray at some point. I think I saw it on Blu-ray the other day and I didn't buy it for some reason. I need to, basically just watch Mel Brooks and his incredible sense of humour at any opportunity you can. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Raphael Kiani asks, what do you want to see in Chibnall's Doctor Who? I want to see... After watching Series 1 of Broadchurch, I got the sense that Chris Chibnall is a very thoughtful writer who has something to say with his work. And I would like to see Chibnall's Doctor Who reflect that sensibility. I want to know what his sensibilities, what he wants to say on the world, what his outlook on the world is, and how he can portray that through this sci-fi series. I want to, because that's where I think the best writers stem from, because when they have something they want to say with their work. And I think that Stephen Moffat, what he mainly wanted to say from his work in Series 5 is, hey, isn't Doctor Who also a bit like a fairy tale? And then in future series was, hey, look how clever I am. And I think that self-aggrandizing really did the show no favours. So I'd like to see that sort of return to using sci-fi, using Doctor Who as a platform to tell stories that only sci-fi can tell, and hopefully Chibnall's up to the task. Okay, time's gone weird. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Ben Berkowitz asks, with only one trailer and under a month from release, how screwed is The Dark Tower? I love the framing of that question. Yeah, there was a pretty solid trailer, was it a month and a half, 2 months ago? And there's been very little else. I think there's been a couple of TV spots, some really terrible posters. I don't know what the strategy is for Sony to promote The Dark Tower. I know that the summer movie season is very crammed, so it'll be awkward to release a trailer because it's just going to get buried by the release of Spider-Man Homecoming and all these other things and that. But it's hard to know. The budget for The Dark Tower is not massive. It is a $60 million budget, which in terms of blockbusters is like a third of what you'd normally expect. But I don't know, there's just been so little marketing aside from that one trailer, which has played in front of almost every single movie I've watched in the past few weeks at the cinema, so it's getting some sort of traction, but I don't know, I'm hoping it's good, and I want Idris Elba to succeed as a leading man. So, okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Harvey D. Cotton Jr. says, what is the division of labour between a director, a cinematographer, and a screenwriter in setting and blocking a scene? Okay, I'm going to turn the timer off for this question. I know I said I'd be equal opportunities, but I want to at least make sure that I'm not fumbling my way through a timer. I want to make sure I'm actually answering this question because it's quite interesting, I think. So the division of labour between a director, a cinematographer, and a screenwriter in setting and blocking a scene. 99 times out of 100, the writer will not be present on the set, unless they are also a producer. But let's say that these are 3 separate individuals with 3 separate departments. So the screenwriter, we can almost completely eliminate him and her from the equation. The most, in terms of inputs that a screenwriter will have when blocking a scene will be, for example, Harry in the script goes over to the kitchen to make a cup of tea. in terms of those plot direct or the plot specific or character specific actions, that's the only input that a screenwriter can have. And depending on how vital it is, the director or cinematographer on the day, depending on the amount of time they've got left or how vital they think it is, can remove it completely. That can be negotiated with the screenwriter. They'll have meetings and they'll say, hey, so does Harry have to go over to make a cup of tea? Because we think that can he go over to the kettle or whatever, because we think that really breaks up the scene. And the writer can be like, no, that's Harry avoiding the question. That's Harry trying to avoid the conversation. He needs to, even if he doesn't go and get a cup of tea or put the kettle on, he needs to move away from that place as he's avoiding the question. So that's really the input that a screenwriter will have, but they will not be on set, so a director could usurp them or they could try and work around it. The cinematographer, in terms of blocking the scene, will work with the lighting team, will work with the cinematographer, the DOP, will work with the lighting team, they'll work with the grips and everyone involved in the technical side in terms of, okay, let's move all of the setting, let's get the dolly track on, let's get the tripod up, let's get the lighting in. We may need to move the actors around a little bit to sort of cheat the angles in order to get the equipment in the room. Let's say this is just in a flat, hence there's a kettle and a cup of tea making facilities there. There's not a lot of space, let's maybe cheat the angle, let's move him forward a bit more. But the director, the cinematographer will also not just look at the logistics and how all of the stuff will get onto the set and how the camera will be placed and how the lighting will work, but they will also look at the frame of the image, they'll look at the camera, they'll look at the angle that they've got, and they'll be like, okay, is this consistent with what we've done before, or is this shot communicating what we want it to do? Is it the shot reverse shot? Is it working within the 180 rule, etc., etc.? And the director will basically approve those shots. And the director, most of the time, will mainly work with the actors. In terms of film, TV is a slightly different thing, but I'm already spending a lot of time on this question. But a director will mainly work with the actors and work with them to get the right performance out of them. Whereas the cinematographer, sometimes the director has input as well, but will actually place them where they need to be in the frame, or have some tips or have some advice. But for the division of labour, the long-winded answer to this question is that it's mainly split between the director and the cinematographer, but the director, of course, as he should, will have the final approval. The cinematographer could say we can't have him there because there's a shadow or because it's just not right with continuity and things like that, and the director can say, okay, that's fine, we'll do that then, but the director still has to approve that. The director should still have final cut, will still have final say, and the screenwriter almost all of the time will just not be present, but will have initial pre-production input. So hopefully that answered your question, Harvey. Interesting question, and thank you for letting me sort of just talk about actual film production stuff for a minute. Okay, the next minute goes to Kieran James Evans. 3, 2, 1, go. I'm looking forward to the Doctor Who Christmas special. It's got the first Doctor in it. Like, how can I not be? I know people are saying that, why am I forgetting his name? Bradley, I feel like the worst person in the world now. David Bradley. I know people are saying it's really disrespectful for David Bradley to fill in William Hartnell's shoes, but have they never heard of Richard Hurndall, who did the exact same thing for the 20th anniversary in the 5 Doctors? Like, the guy's not alive anymore. I have a feeling that we're going to have a story that it's more like, oh, you have to move on, it's all about moving on, it's all about change, it's all about all of that stuff. It's mainly just going to be a minute of Stephen Moffat just trying to vent about him leaving the series or stuff like that, but it could be interesting, and I think Dave Bradley's going to be terrific. He would be the one to play the first Doctor if there was ever going to be anybody, so see how that goes, but I'm really looking forward to seeing those two great actors play off each other. That is the main appeal of the Christmas special. Okay, I've lost my place. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Jaco Moss asks, if you could write an episode of Doctor Who, what would it be about? Well, the episode of Doctor Who that I would write has currently been stolen by Stephen Moffat, in which the companion does get converted into a Cyberman, and there is no way out of that. That is basically the story that I wanted to do. Years and years ago, when I was wanting to make my own Doctor Who series and had all these ideas to myself with my friends and stuff like that, this is 10, 12 years ago. It was about converting the companion in the series finale, and then that is the death of the companion. They don't make it out of that. So So there was also one that I wrote for, or at least came up with the concept for the Doctor Who Generations fan series, but I'm stealing that idea for my own feature film. Not a Doctor Who one, I've repurposed the script from a Doctor Who fan episode into a feature film, so I don't want to give all that away yet, but hopefully, depending if I can actually get any money together or any team, you may be seeing more of that, who knows, but yeah, so my ideas have either been done or I can't really talk about them just yet, sorry to disappoint. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Dominic Howard asks, favourite and least favourite Tom Baker stories. State of Decay is a hidden gem for me. State of Decay holds up in a weird sort of way. It's campy and weird, but that is basically his late era Tom Baker. So that's what you really have to appreciate. My favourite Tom Baker story is Pyramid of Mars. I think Sutekh is just an incredible villain. I love the idea that this is just someone who the Doctor cannot possibly hope to beat, and it's only through just tricking him into a loop that it's not like Sutekh is not dead. He's just stuck in a loop at the end of the series for all time. He could probably escape in a few thousand millennia's time, but I like to see him come back if just for sheer nostalgia. Least favourite Tom Baker story, got off the top of my head, I can't. There is some weak Tom Baker stories, but off the top of my head, I wasn't really a fan of the Android Invasion, and there was also Invasion of Time was pretty weak. I might even say the Pirate Planet. Like, I know it's written by Douglas Adams, but he's just really not on form there. So I've gone over a minute. So, but yeah, let's say the Pirate Planet. I might need to revisit some of the later era Tom Baker though. Okay, so I've lost the page. Okay, so sorry if there's kids shouting outside. I can't really stop recording to postpone it later because I've got plans for like literally the entire next week, and this is my only window to record this podcast. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Garen Howells says, will you be getting around to reviewing the third Wallace and Gromit installment of Close Shave this year? If not, give us your brief thoughts. I will try and get around to reviewing Close Shave for Christmas again. I took the year off because I was just so friggin' busy. Isn't that always the story? Isn't that always the excuse? Because so busy. Yeah, it's not as good as The Wrong Trousers. When I was growing up, it was my favourite one, but mainly because it just had the fun slapstick and the much more action heavy shtick. But I still love the just inventive like use of the sheep and the wool and Preston and the robot. I think it is just pure lunacy, like even more so than The Wrong Trousers. I think that the wordplay and the wit and it isn't quite as pronounced, but it is replaced by something a lot more maybe like family, or at least like kid friendly for slapstick and fun. So it's a trade off, and I think Close Shave is still really, really great. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Matthew Muir says, do you think the BBC will ever be privatised? I think if it is to be privatised, that would... I don't actually think it will, out of sheer principle. We do need that independent, like, third party, like, not paid for, in terms of advertisers or for profit. But the problem is that I almost... As someone who works, has frequently worked for the BBC on many occasions, I know that almost every single BBC employee, anecdotally speaking, is left-wing leaning. However, there has been an anti-left-wing bent in terms of how they have depicted the election and Jeremy Corbyn and all this other stuff. Mainly because it's just out of sheer fear that the Conservatives will basically make the BBC a target, because practically everything is a target when you're a Conservative. So I don't think it will. However, it's kind of on a slippery slope at the moment in terms of how it approaches subjects like that. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Richard McGee says, thoughts on David Bradley coming back properly to play the first Doctor alongside Peter Capaldi, and what are some of your theories on the actual story of the Christmas special? I've briefly touched on this, but yeah, David Bradley's going to be amazing, I think. But what will the story be? Like I said, I do think it is going to be Stephen Moffat venting about how he's going to have to move on and change, and how he doesn't like change like that, and all of that stuff. I think that's really the only way to do a story. It wouldn't surprise me if this was like actually about to take place before the 10th planet, like, because the Doctor at the end of that episode is on a snowy planet and has just encountered the first race of Cybermen. So maybe this leads into the 10th planet, or maybe this is like a side story during the 10th planet or something. I think that maybe Moffat might not be able to resist the fangasm that would give. So that's basically my guess, although we don't really have any solid details. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Oscar Tid asks, seeing as we're about to get a new showrunner, Doctor and Companion in Doctor Who, it's safe to assume we'll get a new TARDIS interior design. What are some of your favourites and what would you like to see for the 13th TARDIS? I love the Paul McGann classy library, basically Harry Potter common room TARDIS. I think that's really classy and brilliant, and it's a great mix between like the steampunk and this very homely environment, and there is just this console in the middle. Where I think it's a very great seamless blend. Although personally the TARDIS design that I would have wanted to see is Capaldi's TARDIS, is Matt Smith's later TARDIS, where it has the numerous levels. I love the use of levels in the TARDIS. It means you get some great interesting shots and angles. It means you can play a lot with the setting. It means you can do a lot of placement. It looks great, and it's logistically brilliant for the creative team, for the production team. So that's the one. That's kind of what I would like to see. Maybe more use of levels, maybe another layer or some other aspect to that. I'm not sure. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Rory O'Driscoll says, "Have you seen BoJack Horseman? If so, what do you think?" In terms of stuff I watch on Netflix, I'm just still trying to make my way through Orange is the New Black, still trying to make my way through Breaking Bad, but I want to see BoJack Horseman. I hear it's one of those things that has a shaky start, but once you stick with it, it really rewards you. I tend to marathon Netflix stuff with my fiance, and she has no interest in watching BoJack Horseman whatsoever. The concept just seems too weird, and she just doesn't really want to bother, so if I'm going to watch it, it will be on my own, but I hardly ever have time on my own to do stuff like that anymore. So I'd like to. It is on my list to watch, but I'm hopefully gonna see it. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Mitchell Radford asks, out of all the Game of Thrones you've seen, what is your favourite scene? I've only watched maybe 2 or 3 episodes of Game of Thrones. I liked it when the kid fell out the window. That is it. I've not seen enough Game of Thrones to accurately comment. 3, 2, 1, go. Dominic Maxwell asks, best moments / scenes in the Lord of the Rings trilogy in your opinion. I need to rewatch those. I love that because I've been playing Shadow of Mordor recently, and that is just a terrific game. That's really got me interested in Lord of the Rings again. I love anything with Gollum and Smeagol. The scene where Gondor's army is about to attack and the king is eating the chicken, and Perry is singing the song. It's really on the nose, but it's brilliant as well. Anything in the Mines of Moria, whether it's You Shall Not Pass, the fight with the cave troll, them trying to make their way through the steps. It's just full of set piece after set piece that is just outstanding, perfectly executed, and it's one of the best movie trilogies of all time. I'm so glad you put the plurals on, Dominic, say moments / scenes, because you can't think of one. There's so much there, so much to unpack. Aragorn fighting off the ring wraiths with the fire torch. It's so... I need to rewatch this trilogy. Okay, next question. 3, 2, 1, go. Marco Portuando says, do you think that Bad Moms 2 and Daddy's Home 2 will do well, and what are your thoughts on the first one? I liked both of them. I liked Bad Moms 1 more. I think that Bad Moms 2... maybe they should have let it gel for another year before doing a sequel, because maybe this Christmas one, which looks good, and I think there's great material to be mined here, maybe could have used another year just to creatively work through it and creatively think of more stuff, but maybe scheduling was like, yeah, we have to do it this year, it's not going to happen next year. I don't know, I wasn't there. But the trailer for Bad Moms 2 was effective. I liked the trailer for Daddy's Home 2, but I think it's mainly going to be the stunt casting that will carry that film. Whereas I think Bad Moms 2 will get more on theme and on character. I'm not saying that one tactic is necessarily better or worse, or that one's bad or good or whatever, but I think in terms of what I'm looking for a film, I think Bad Moms 2 will have more to offer. But I think Daddy's Home 2 will maybe do better financially, because after Bad Santa 2 and all these other adult, and The Night Before, I think adult rated Christmas films have kind of been on the wane for the past few years financially, so let's see how that does. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Benedict Davidson asks, what are some of your other favourite shows outside of Doctor Who? In terms of comedies, but they're not really running anymore, I love The IT Crowd, Blackadder Goes Forth, I'm Alan Partridge. Stuff that's running right now, I like to... scripted stuff, I just don't have the time to really watch stuff on TV that much anymore. I enjoyed Apple Tree Yard. The Replacement was good as well. What else is on? I just have so little time for TV. I want to watch... I love Breaking Bad, but I've not finished it yet. About halfway through Series 3. Need to watch more of Game of Thrones. I'm kind of watching Orange is the New Black, but I've not watched Series 4, but because my fiancé is watching Series 5 in the background, I'm basically watching Series 5, even though I've not watched Series 4 yet. It's just this time. I hate you. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go. Matthew Hoskins asked, do you think Doctor Who works best in a classic serial format or the new single episode format? I think that it works. It worked for the time. I think the serial format, to get people watching week in, week out, and being able to recycle the sets and the actors and stuff, being able to create 20 minutes of TV a week for 4 weeks is a lot easier than doing a brand new different story every week for 45 minutes. Financially, it's just a lot easier to do it now than it was back then. Like in the 60s, 70s and 80s, it was basically cost saving, but it also did work in terms of giving characters time to gel, and it's great to marathon those stories basically as proper movies now. I think it works in both aspects. They're good for the time. I think that Doctor Who maybe could stand to do a few more two-parters, or maybe just bite the bullet and just go for the full hour. But I think that both of the formats work for the teams as they're, like, in terms of logistics, in terms of the creative teams now for the current climate and the climate before, so whatever works. Also, I didn't put this in the timer, but he says, P.S. you are my idol. It's because of you that I got into analysing stories, which has led me into getting into acting. Thank you so much. So really appreciate that, Matthew. Thank you very much. And I hope that the acting goes really well for you. Best of luck. Get as much on your show reel as you can. So enjoy that. Have a real fun time. Get a lot of variety and diversity into your show reel, and I wish you the best of luck. 2 questions left. 3, 2, 1, go. Karen Stewart asks, when River shot the Doctor, the 11th, on Lake Silencio, why did he start to regenerate if 1, he was a robot, and 2, he didn't actually have any regenerations left? What I seem to remember, I tried to forget as much as I can about the end of Series 6, but as I recall, he was inside the Tesselector, and they just put on a light show. They just used the robot to make it look like they were regenerating. I believe that was what they were going for, or at least that's what they were hinting at doing in order to fake his death. They just put on a great big light show. It's an advanced piece of technology with loads of people inside it. They could probably just put on a big light show or overcharge a battery in the Tesselector in order to just make it shine a lot more. I believe that's the case, but I don't think it was fully 100% explicitly communicated, so that is still a fair question, I think. Okay, so last question, 3, 2, 1, go. Adam Ferrier asks, what is your average Edgar Wright movie? Yeah, Edgar Wright does not make average movies. He either hits out of the park or actually just destroys the stadium with awesomeness. If your question is, what is your favourite Edgar Wright movie? Shaun of the Dead. If your question is, what is your least favourite Edgar Wright movie? Hot Fuzz, but I still gave that a friggin' 9 out of 10. So the average, the middle film, would probably have to be Baby Driver? Maybe Scott Pilgrim? I'm not sure. But like I said, Edgar Wright, he's not a half measures guy. He does not do average. Speaking of Edgar, I need to watch Spaced. I know, you're probably shocked that I don't have the free time to watch something. But Spaced is something that my friend's got on DVD, and he's offered to lend it to me, and I've just not watched it. It's 14 episodes, man. I can watch 14, 25 minutes. I can do that. Come on, Will. Come on, Trilbee. Get it done. Whew, now I'm out of breath from all of that, and I've actually nearly done an hour of this. That's actually worked out pretty well. In a few minutes, I've got to go pick up my fiancée from work, so that's worked out pretty well. So thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much to all of my Facebook followers who left me some very interesting, diverse questions. And thank you for... sorry if I've disappointed anyone because I've not watched a film or a TV show. I just didn't have much to say on a particular subject, but it's all fun, it's all different. Really appreciate all of it. So if you'd like to get more questions on the Film Brits podcast, you can go on my Patreon, www.patreon.com/Trilbee. My voice is going. I've forgotten how to word things. You can go onto my Patreon in order to financially contribute and get some in-depth questions, not just lightning round ones, onto the podcast, and request some topics and questions and all that good stuff, and get these podcasts a whole day early. Massively appreciate it as well. So I also have my Twitter at Trilbee Reviews, my Facebook at Mr. TARDIS Reviews, and also be sure to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, all of your podcasting streams and all that good stuff. Massively appreciate all of the support, so thank you so much, and I hugely appreciate the support, and I shall see you guys next time.